9 o'clock, you are tuned to WUSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook.
Coming to you from Long Island Sound, where the hippest music can be found, like a buried treasure underground. Clam Radio, on the ocean floor and having fun, singing tunes since 1961, getting absolutely nothing done. Clam Radio, airwaves, sound waves, from under the real waves. Clam Radio.
This is George Tirebiter. I ran for president back in 1976. Well, vice president. I guess I was more interested in vice than I was in being president. But, WUSB in Stony Brook took my candidacy seriously. So, if you take radio seriously, you might want to join me and listen to WUSB at 90.1. Well, somewhere on your FM dial.
Airwaves, sound waves, from under the real waves. Clam Radio, Clam Radio, Clam Radio.
Can you dig it?
A long, long time ago, this'll be the day that I die.
Oh, yeah. Here we are on Clam Radio, and when you hear that song, you know that I'm with Bob Ball, computer scientist. And, Bob, it's good to have you back. You weren't here since last year, about a year and a half.
Yeah, 2 weeks after I did the last gig, I had my stroke.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You had a stroke, and not like a little stroke, like one that was really debilitating. Amazing that you came
brain
back.
grunting, dead for 2.5 minute stroke. Yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah, dog saved my life, and
how was that? Your dog knew that.
The dog knew it. He knew I was having a stroke, and he was barking like you would never believe. Got my wife up, and went to the hospital, and
wow.
6 months of rehabilitation with physical therapists, which have a leather fixation and a Nazi affiliation, by the way. And
of course,
you could do another one. You know?
Oh my God, yeah. That was unbelievable. I couldn't believe the fact that you couldn't move your arm or anything. I'm like, what is going to happen?
I could feel everything. I just couldn't move anything.
Yeah.
I couldn't talk. And what happened was I had an infarction on my left side of my brainstem. Mm-hmm. It's amazing because, ironically, we were talking about the brain on that last conversation. And I was talking about muscle memory and everything. Well, now I know exactly where muscle memory is stored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what it is that the brainstem controls essentially all your muscle memory and your spinal cord, and everything is all wrapped up in that one, column. And lucky for me, I was born a lefty, and that's why you're like, wow, he's amazing. He's doing it. Well, people who had the same infarction, about the size of a thumb, not doing so well, because I had my entire right side was paralyzed, but I was born a lefty, so I had already mapped out the right side of my brain and the right side of my brain stem, so it wasn't as difficult, what the physical therapists tell me. That's the reason why I was able to the brain is essentially plastic, so I was able to control those things. I had to learn how to do everything again with that hand. Like, I can't even play an A chord, It's like writing my name is like, a modified X.
A modified X, that's about it. Well, you remember you had to write with your right hand because you had hurt yourself, so even that was bad at the time.
Well, but you see, the thing was, I used to be a lefty, and then I had a skiing accident. Then I had to become a righty.
Ah, God.
And but if I didn't have the skiing accident, well, there it is. That shows you how the human body is all connected. So.
But you couldn't even speak. I mean, your language, you've gotten so much better. I mean, you're...
Well, you have speech therapy. And, the lady, works with you every single day. And the physical they're great. I'm only kidding, by the way. The physical therapist things, they're really, really great. Most of the time, they were holding me back. So because I wanted to go down the hole and push myself and do more, but the lady's like, oh, it's okay, Mr. Ball, not so much this time. So it's very important that you have that drive. But it's also very important because, it's like that song you wrote. It's 2 steps forward, one step back.
Yeah, sure.
And my wife, God bless her, she was there for me the whole time.
That's tough.
My sons, thank God, I was praying for my son. He was on deployment at the time. He was on the Carl. He's an aviator, lieutenant on the Carl Vincent. That ship is again sailed again, but my son is now a test pilot at Pax River. He's assigned to VX-1. So, and my other son's going to school in South Carolina. So, a voice out to the boys. But their prayers and all my Facebook friends, their prayers really helped. And I'm telling you, you came to see me with all different kind of people, and I remember some of them because I was creating a Syrian novel that was like War and Peace because I couldn't type,
Right.
And my memory that would give me so many drugs I couldn't remember from one day to the next. So
did the drugs make a difference, though? I mean, whether you think it was a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, ultimately.
Well, I guess it's a good thing because you don't remember how much pain you were in because at times you're shaking. My wife said it was because one muscle, when the brain is reconnecting, one muscle works against the other muscle and stuff. It's horror. It's a horror show. I thought the gallbladder that I had was bad or the kidney stones. This was worse.
So your mind basically had a rewire. It rewired.
Right. It basically, all those functions that were on my right side, and that includes your diaphragm, by the way, and your digestion and speaking and hearing. Sometimes I hear things and I'll think that I heard the opposite, or I want to say something and I'll say the opposite.
Right.
It's actually, and the reason why is because those macros are actually being thought of in your cerebral cortex, and then you're transferring them to that's essentially spine. But it's amazing how a lot of things are opposite. I'll say right when I mean left. I'll say left when I mean right. I'm not doing as much as I was doing. I was immediately after I had my stroke. It was apparent that there was and you're like encased in it. You know where you are, but you also know that you can't do things. And I'll tell you one thing. I even ISIS, I won't even wish them to hell because you can see it on your way up. It's not a good place, and people just falling into the pit like.
So you think having this experience strengthened your religious beliefs, or
I always had a strong belief because as a scientist, I know that the law of entropy. So the more complex life is, the more ordered, and the more energy is stored, and the more complex matter is organized. That's against nature. Nature is to create disorder and to spread things out. If you open up a bottle of ammonia in a room, within 30 seconds, 15 feet away, you'll smell it. So people say, well, we have this natural evolution and this. Well, if that's the case, how come we haven't run into Dino satellites and Dino roads and Dino moon bases and I think that it's a lot more complicated than that, and I don't believe that the life that's here originated here. I think that it's had help from several sources, whether it be an asteroid, a meteorite, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Because life is very tenacious when it gets a foothold. It's very, but that tree that's outside your door is fighting against gravity. It's fighting against.
Like, why would it do that?
It's fighting everything, and a lot of people don't realize that the most common element on the planet. Do you know what that is?
Hydrogen?
No.
Stupidity?
No. The most common element on the planet is oxygen.
Really? I thought hydrogen was more.
No, oxygen. Everything's oxidized. All rock is oxidized.
Rust, yeah, sure.
Yeah, everything's oxidized, and people don't realize that if it wasn't for plate tectonics, which is the essentially you have subluxation of plates and one going underneath and volcanoes. Volcanoes put out, by the way, more CO2 in 1 month than we do a whole year.
Of course,
you know,
it's huge.
And they're recycling that carbon. You need that carbon to maintain life. If you didn't have any planet activity in plate tectonics and volcanoes, life would, peter out in kind of no time. Because if it's not recycled and ready to use, then because all life here, at least on the Earth, is carbon based.
Right.
So a lot of people don't realize that. And they don't realize there's a lot of junk science going on out there. A lot of just. I wanted to talk to you about. I heard Trump say the N-word yesterday.
Yeah, the N-word. Yeah,
the N-word.
Right. Well, you can't say that here.
And Obama didn't want to say it, but the other people say, and nobody wants to talk about the N-word.
Well, yeah, there's kind of restrictions in terms of radio. You can't mention the N-word, apparently.
But I'm going to say it.
Well,
I think it needs to be said. It needs to be said.
Okay.
It needs to be said because nobody's talking about it. It needs to be said. The N-word needs to be said. I'm going to say it. You ready?
Okay.
Nuclear.
There it is.
Nobody's talking about nuclear and what is going on with Fukushima, with the Earth, with all the radiation leaks in Indian Point. Handover, all places are leaking on the planet. All these reactors leaking. Do you know why
these are old reactors? There's nothing new.
There's a reason. There's a reason why all these reactors are leaking.
Please tell us why.
Well, it has to do with a thing called criticality.
Okay.
It also has exactly the same reason why the Earth there's like 40 volcanoes active right now, and there's earthquakes all over the place. And what's going on?
What's going on?
What's happening? What's happening? What can possibly be accounting for all this? You're like, what?
Is it the sun that's doing it?
Well, the sun is actually is it starts with the sun, but it ends with the fact that our magnetic shield is flipping. Okay, and as a matter of fact, some areas like off the coast of Brazil, it's actually flipped, which means that if you go off the coast of Brazil. Yeah, your compass is going to swing and point you the wrong way.
Really? Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And the reason why it's not true, and it is true, okay, but the reason why they're saying it's not true because they're not telling the public, okay? They're not telling the public about any of these fishes that are washing up dead all over the place and mammals that are washing up dead all over the place. Everything is like going crazy. And
well, you've seen some of that. The scientists say, well, we don't understand why.
Well, I understand why. Since 2011, they've been dumping 800 tons a day of the most highly radioactive waste
800 tons
in the Pacific, which, of course, it's a big place. No, it's not that big, okay? So, not when biologics concentrated, okay? And now there's like 15 times to 5 times, times normal background radiation in California, all up the West Coast to Vancouver. A friend of mine just had a tarpon, a fish, and it turned out it was caught in Alaska. She had it. She became sick. And she sent it out to a lab. Guess what? It was test positive for radiation. She's taking, her doctor prescribed anti-radiation therapy for her.
They have such a thing? Was it like iodine or something? Anti-radiation. What's that? They have stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does it do? It takes away the radiation, or?
It goes after the heavy metals.
Oh, wow. Give me some of that.
Well, it can. If you don't have radiation, it can actually be lethal to you.
Oh. So.
Where it's just like fighting lead.
Oh.
A lot of people don't realize that. You're like radiation. There's various types of radiation. Okay, but there's radiation around us all the time. But people don't realize that. There's lots of things that are nuclear that are good. See, and lots of things that are nuclear that are bad. Okay, and a lot of people don't realize that. For example, Curiosity. Curiosity is running on two nuclear reactors, not one, two.
Curiosity is what? What is it?
The rover on Mars.
I thought you meant Curiosity killed the cat, so I wasn't sure you were talking about. Oh, on Mars, yeah, that's right. It's still running around, right?
It's going to be running around for a long time. So is Voyager, by the way.
That's been out there.
We
That's-
talked
that
about that
passed-
last
I
time.
think that passed Pluto at this point.
No, it passed the outside of of our, the
Kepler belt?
field that our sun puts out, the heliosphere,
Right.
and actually is detecting galactic cosmic rays and radiation
Wow.
and whatnot. And
That's lonely. Little
well,
thing floating there.
it actually took a shot of the Earth, a little pin blue dot,
Wow.
and it was pretty remarkable. But all those things run on plutonium 238, and you're gonna say, well, how the heck does that work?
How does it work?
It works it's an RTG.
What's that?
It's a thermal coupling. Did you ever see an electric cooler?
An electric
You plug it
cooler,
into a
yeah.
cigarette lighter,
Uh-huh.
and all of a sudden it gets cold,
Right.
and you're like, wow, that's great.
Right.
Well, how it works is basically it's a Peltzer effect, okay? And what happens is that the electrons cause a reaction with the semiconductor to make one side hot and one side cold. Well, if you do that on purpose, if you make one side hot
Right.
and one side cold, guess what happens?
What happens?
It generates electricity. There's the Kickstarter. There was a company that makes a biostove to where that you can burn like pieces of wood and stuff, and it'll charge up your iPhone, and you can camp with it and
that's
stuff.
reasonable.
It works the same way. Okay, so there's two of them on Curiosity, and there's one of them on Voyager, and they're nuclear. And yeah, I said it, the word nuclear.
Yes.
And so there is good nukes and there is bad nukes, right? So
Right.
you can, everybody thinks nuclear is bad. Well, yes, if you're talking about nuclear reactors today, high and heavy water, basically they're working either between 70 to 150 atmospheres.
Wow.
And a pressure, and that's 1947 technology. It's not very good. It's like there's different types of cars. You can have a Pinto,
That's right.
and you can have a Vega, and they're not very good cars.
Camaro.
Or you can have a Tesla or my hybrid Escape, which is a very good car. So there's or diesel. I mean whatever. There's different types of technology. Everybody's like solar this and wind that. Right?
Well, aren't we just trying to wean ourselves off the oil and stuff? I mean, the prices are lower, and I think don't you think they're going to be going in another direction, or no?
Well, the problem is everybody thinks that energy is bad. Energy is bad. Energy is a bad way. You consume too much
energy. Yes, right. But that's a
But
commodity,
actually,
though.
energy is good. And you're going to say, what? Okay, let's take a king 500 years ago.
Okay.
A king.
Right.
Let's talk about his life. What kind of toilet did he have? He had a chamber pot.
A chamber pot. Okay. Yeah. I
Okay.
thought something
What
the
did he
Romans
eat?
came
What
up
did he
with.
eat?
A chamber pot. No, he had.
Something that was freshly killed.
Right.
What kind of water? Well water, not very filtered.
Right. Well, not filtered. yeah.
And how often do you take a shower or bath? Once every month, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And he was a king of a castle.
Right. So you can imagine.
So poor people in this country, some in a lot of respects, have it a lot better. And there's one reason why:
Why is that?
energy. Okay. So in the terms of people, they shouldn't be wanting less energy. They should be wanting more energy, but cleaner energy, and a better way to produce it as far as cost. Okay. Now, for 10,000 years we've had slaves.
Yeah, a long time. Yeah.
Okay, so people are like, well, slavery is bad. We agree slavery is bad.
Yeah, I'd say it's bad.
Okay, slavery is bad.
But
what's been our slave in the past 150 years? Carbon.
yeah.
That's good. Okay, it's that stopped human slavery, that elevated mankind into a tremendous technological growth, and it's great. Okay, but it has limitations.
Right.
Okay, so our next step is nuclear. We talked about this before with the Holy Grail of tech. We didn't finish it,
Right.
but we need stepping stones, as it were. So oil and coal were a stepping stone, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And fission is a stepping stone. I mean, we need to get to fusion, Okay, we have. You asked me before. Do we have? We have it, but just like all this other technology, which is of course suppressed, just like information is suppressed.
Yeah.
Like well, they won't tell you what's going on at CERN because they're now blocking out half the things. A weasel, by the way, ate the transformer, which was 60,000 volt wiring in that transformer.
Yes, the old weasel excuse.
You don't want to even know what would happen to that weasel if he even gets close to the transformer. but so we're led to believe that. Okay. Meanwhile, they when they had the CERN up to 13 teravolts, the actual field collapsed. The Earth. Okay, there was and plasma from the sun and the Van Allen belt actually contacted the Earth, and a lot of people don't realize that when you see lightning and things in the sky, it's a way of taking those charged particles that are in our atmosphere with sprites and whatnot, and actually conducting them into the planet.
Right.
So,
so what you're saying is that when they ran the thing up to that degree, 13, whatever. It had an effect on the entire planet, you're saying?
Yeah. Because it normally wouldn't, okay? But that's how our magnetic shield in the past 50 years has moved almost, I guess about 250 miles. And has been, if you look like at a chart, it's almost a parabola. It's actually gone tremendously down to where that, like I said, there's areas off the coast of South America where it's actually already flipped, and they don't understand. The other thing is that because of these, let's talk about nuclear fission, okay? Because this is important because all these reactors are leaking now. Indian Point's leaking, Hanford Site's leaking, radioactive waste and stuff is leaking.
We never hear about it.
Fukushima's leaking.
That we never hear about, even though it's obviously in the news.
Well, you can't talk about it. If you talk about it, you'll be censored.
Because
you're not supposed to talk about it. Because it's the what?
I see what you're saying.
Even when they say they launched Curiosity, you won't even hear NASA say that they launched 2 nuclear reactors up in space, but they actually did.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, you won't even hear that. Because the Greens have made nuclear such a bad word, okay? Mm-hmm. But molybdenum, which is used, they used it on me when they did some CAT scans and certain tests.
Right.
Those are radioactive isotopes that they put in your bloodstream to be able to detect different types of things. And those are medical, things. That's actually made in a special medical research reactor, okay?
Uh-huh.
But most of the radiation treatments for cancer are beta emitters. Instead of, like, if you had a lifter, you could make alpha emitters. And alpha is like right there on the cancer.
Right.
None of the side effects. It's just directed. But you see, President Obama had GE going to the White House all these times, and they got the very expensive refueling contracts signed and delivered for these reactors in our country. And Westinghouse is actually building a lifter in China for the Chinese, which is something we actually had here. Nixon shut it down in 1973.
Now, what is a lifter exactly? LFTR, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is, what is that?
Liquid, fluoride, thorium reactor.
And it's safer than...
it's very safe. Yeah. The reason why it's safe is because the guy who designed the regular reactors we have now actually designed the lifters. The reason why it's safe is because it works in a liquid state, which means it's a molten salt breeder reactor, and because it's doing that, all the fissionable materials that are bad, like xenon and whatnot, come right out of the salt solution, and you can deal with them. Xenon only has a half-life of 9 hours. So,
that's it. 9 hours is gone, half of it.
Well, it's very radioactive in the 9 hours, and it's a tremendous neutron absorber. And because of all these reactors, that's the biggest problem with xenon, believe it or not, because they use what's known as called uranium oxide in their fuel core, because they're solid core reactors, and the xenon that's produced actually cracks the core. Then here's all that gas trying to escape, and it can't.
Right. So
you're burning very little amounts of fuel. It's very profitable for the GE and whatnot companies because it's only less than 0.5% efficient. It's very inefficient. But a thorium reactor can take that same radioactive waste, and they can use that radioactive waste and actually burn it and transmute it into other atoms and to a harmless salt. By doing so, they can make electricity, all the power they want, and fresh water. If they're by water, they don't need water to run. They can run anywhere. They don't need water to do anything, because they use CO2 in the gas turbines, because they have higher temperatures they can run at. They run between 495 Celsius to 795 Celsius. So, and they're very small. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, a 200 megawatt plant would only be the size of a van. And the rest of the support structures around there, basically your house.
That's pretty practical.
And you can make it in a factory and ship them all over the country. And the thing that really disturbs me greatly is because we need this now. We need 1 cent, to 4 cent kilowatt electricity, and in order to bring our jobs and economy back. But more than that, to clean up what's going on. Mm-hmm. Now, in Fukushima, if that's not capped right away, there's active fission going on 300 meters below that plant. I have a friend of mine, they detected xenon, and in order to detect that in the upper atmosphere, that means that there's active fission going on in the groundwater table, and they detected 150 times normal background radiation in Tokyo. I mean, basically the whole continent of Japan that's it. It has to be evacuated. I mean, it's so contaminated from Fukushima.
What were they trying to do? Like put like a frozen wall around it or something? Or?
They had the right idea, just not enough power. They were trying to do it with Freon. It needs to be done. Basically, Michio Kaku came up with the idea of 2 nuclear reactors set up to make liquid nitrogen. But I think you're going to need 2 nuclear submarines, too. A lot of people don't realize that. But submarines are basically big generators. I mean, they really are. I mean, if you just dedicate all their motion into, making power, they're very good at making power. I mean, believe it or not, for the years, I don't know, 60 years, they were using an old S-type submarine with diesel generators to make all the electric power on Block Island.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
submarine, huh?
A World War II submarine. They just parked it right there, and they were just running it for all these years, making electricity for Block Island with that submarine. And then
why Block Island? Who paid off that? I mean, what's up with that?
Well, there's the population of Block Island is extremely seasonal for one thing, and it's kind of like in the middle of nowhere, and a lot of people don't realize it, but they get hit with storms out there. I've been out there with my own boat several times, and but a lot of people don't. There's a lot of junk science going on. Like everybody says, solar this, solar that. Well, solar is only good as an energy transfer. You're never going to get the energy that went into making the solar panel out of solar.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Because there's aluminum, there's glass, there's silicone, and everything. Silver. Okay. Now, like I said before, if you're in the South Pacific, you want that energy transfer on your boat. You're in the middle of nowhere. You don't want to carry fuel.
That's true.
You want a wind turbine on your boat. That's fine. But all these things require rare earths, and they're very expensive to make, and they're on a kilowatt basis they're extremely expensive and not practical.
Right.
So coal is about 4 cents a kilowatt, and there's ways to burn coal that you can prevent a lot of pollution, and the waste streams of the coal, believe it or not, there's thorium.
Uh-huh.
And the thorium that's in that coal waste streams actually has more energy than the coal itself. So that waste stream can be used too. Now, I say the coal because we have a lot of coal plants that are being closed in this country, and we need something right now as a stopgap before these lifter reactors and other systems come online to, get us over that hump of transition. Right. And people who are mining coal can be then, hired by rare earth mines, silver. There's always a job for a miner. Okay, so if they're not mining coal, they can be used to mine something else. But and there are skills involved in their mining. So those skills can be used, and the jobs can be transferred. But everything takes time, so that there's the littlest amount of economic impact. Now, when it comes to oil, the lifters work at such a high temperature they can synthetically make oil again cheaper than you can get it out of the ground. And because we have, I don't know, $4 or $5 trillion worth of automobiles that run on gasoline and
That's true.
diesel and whatnot, you don't want to throw that away. So you want to be able to make something that's going to produce that oil and produce it cheaply for people, and we can become fully energy independent, which means no imports of energy whatsoever. We can even be exporting energy within 2 to 3 years. If it's concentrated and the focus is done on the White House and we understand what's going on. But to cap Fukushima, it's such in a bad state right now, with a frozen wall, there has to be at least 1 square mile around the plant. And the frozen wall has to be really frozen down to almost 800 meters. Okay, so that's a huge endeavor. You're going to need some serious power. And you're going to need, us to do it, Putin to do it, China to do it. I mean, it's a world thing. The UN should have been all over this right away.
Yeah, it's global. It affects everybody.
It's a global thing. And the water that you think that's really polluted, okay, it's going to be in the Atlantic in 53 years. So if you want to, if you, grandchildren or something like that will be a thing of the past if this is not stopped. And people don't realize how bad it is. But they don't realize how bad it is because they're not allowed to tell you how bad it is. But it's really bad. And
I don't understand why they wouldn't want to tell people, because then it would make jobs. People would have to figure out ways to fix this mess that we have. I mean, I don't understand. Like, why suppress it? You're hurting everybody, even the people that are suppressing it. I don't understand. I never understood that logic. I don't know why. They could just be evil people, I guess.
There's no question that there's evil people who are greedy, and they don't care about people's lives. They don't. They think, well, geez, they are bean counters. Well, it'll cost so much for us to clean this up. The heck with it. It's their mentality with all the waste throughout the whole planet. They knew that the nuclear reactors they were building are extremely inefficient. They knew that it was better things. We were talking about suppressed technology last time.
That's right. Yeah.
And why is it that we don't even have a manned space program? The budget to NASA is less than $7 billion. We spend more money on movies, making movies. So I don't even talk about video games. That's what, $40 billion a year of video games.
That's a lot.
We spend all this money on non-reality than on reality. And the other baby said, "Well, we have problems here in the ground. Well, you need to spend money here. Black Lives Matter." Well, all lives matter, folks. Okay, and if you want to help all lives, you need the holy grail of tech, because if you can make energy cheaply, okay, then the 5 billion people in the world that are washing clothes by hand, okay? Every single day there's women finding water to wash clothes, and most of the water is not exactly drinkable, okay?
Yeah, that's true.
And it's a labor thing. They don't have a washing machine. Only 2 billion people use a washing machine every single day. That's a perfect example of what technology can do to raise the human really life. And if you do things like put a moon base and go to Mars, those technology, in order to do that, okay, you're like, oh, you got to recycle everything, okay? To do that, you need a really good, stable platform of energy, okay? And you have to be able to grow your own food, okay, really efficiently. And you have to be able to recycle your air. And you have to have a computer system that won't be affected by a CME discharge, okay? So you got to have photon computers. So you're going to say, well, so what? Well, just like what Kennedy said, those technologies we invented from 1960 to 1969 are used today in everything, okay? Which are affecting everybody's life, which are how many people have been saved with satellites that can tell what the weather is going to be, or, biomedical advances and whatnot. it's incalculable, and that's where the technology can get you if you work together. But necessity is the mother of invention, and that this is what you have to do. There's tremendous spin-offs of all these technologies that will affect human beings tremendously. We're the first human beings, by the way. This is another reason why we know that the dinosaurs and the evolution. I mean, they were here for what, 150 million years, eating salad, and they couldn't fight off an asteroid that was going to destroy the Earth.
They developed a really good salad.
They couldn't develop any technology, by the way, to save them from doom.
An asteroid, yeah, exactly.
Okay, but we can. I mean, if we invent superconductors, room temperature superconductors, we can build a asteroid, induced Gauss cannon, as it will, and it could pulverize any asteroid that's coming in that we would see. Mm-hmm. But there's no vision. Everything is about money. 9,000 channels of cable. Kim Kardashian in her butt. I mean, it's just crazy.
Let me just tell you, folks, that you're listening to Bob Ball. And Bob, he had a stroke about a year and a month ago, and he's back. And he's back with a vengeance. And he's got a lot of things to talk about, and we've still got a lot of things to talk about. Bill McNulty is here. I saw him. He's floating around. So he'll be here at 11 o'clock. I got to play a little PSA and maybe a piece of music. And we'll be right back talking to Bob Ball about everything, about stuff that you should know. And then we have to discuss what we can do to make things happen. Radiation cripples a nation, a nation, a nation. Fuel rods broken, leaking, smoking, melting Have a nice day. All right, we're here with Bob Ball. He's going to be talking about stuff, elements and things of that nature. We're talking about radiation, how it's kind of an important subject.
The bad R word.
The bad R word.
Along with the bad N word.
Well, you know what it is? You see all these things they're talking about, like all this bathroom stuff. I just think it's a non-story. They don't want to talk about the real important stuff. They don't want to talk about it.
I had a discussion with your friend on Facebook the other day. She made this whole comment about this is important, and, it affects the LGBT, whatever community and stuff. And I said, okay, well, that's 0.03% of the population. And no matter what, it's not going to kill them, okay? It's not going to... The choice of bathroom is not going to be like Harry Carey, and they're going to whip a sword out and kill themselves.
Since when has that ever been a problem, though? I don't really remember this.
It does. But the point is that... And I was trying to tell her, I said, radiation, okay, is going to kill Okay, 100% of the people. Okay, it's not going to not affect the
And
people.
it doesn't matter who you are.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Or what you
It's
believe.
going to affect all of you. Okay, except for this special elite. Obviously,
Got the
they
special suits.
they know that they have special food and they know and they don't care. But obviously it is, and at the same time, the nuclear reaction has 1,000,000 times more energy than a carbon bond. So that's a fact. So, but just like a fire, or just like electricity, or cars, misuse will kill you. Okay,
Right.
and nuclear is the same way. Misuse will kill you. But there is, just like anything else, like plutonium. Don't say plutonium. That's bad. Well, plutonium-239 is bad. Plutonium-238 is actually good. Okay? You make RTGs out of it that actually power stuff that can explore space and things. That's actually a good use. Okay? And does it last a long time? 80 to 100 years, with no moving parts. That's pretty good.
That's
okay?
pretty good,
It's
yeah.
pretty good. Okay, so that's not bad. So there are good uses for nuclear. We go to. I just recently had a lot of MRIs and tests and whatnot and CAT scans. They use molybdenum, which is made, again, it's another nuclear isotope.
Right.
You need to have it to see different blood circulations on X-rays, and they were looking at my heart because basically. You either have a heart attack, then have a stroke, or you have a stroke and then have a heart attack.
There you go.
They kind of go hand in hand.
Ah.
So they're worried about my heart, and they're like, "Well, we're worried about your heart." So, but if you live in a house and you have a basement,
No, I don't have a basement.
he doesn't have a basement.
I do live in a house. though.
Anybody out there who has a basement, raise their hand.
I see.
I see a lot of people out there.
Right.
Well, guess what? You're breathing in a thing called radon, okay?
There you go.
And that's a gas, and that's radioactive. And now, does that mean that you're going to die? No, it doesn't mean. There's actually a certain amount of radiation, believe it or not, is actually good for you. You're going to say, what?
What?
Yeah, well, it is. Because
Say what?
It stimulates your white blood cells and your immune system to actually go into gear. Now, I said a small amount,
Are
okay?
you talking about concrete and stuff? I mean,
Well, concrete's radioactive.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
Brick is radioactive. Again, we said a small. Notice I said small, and you're not, small amount. Okay, that doesn't mean. Now, plutonium, for example. Okay, you can ingest plutonium,
right.
but your human tolerance for an entire lifetime is 1/10,000th of a gram. So you're like, geez, Bob, that doesn't sound like a lot of plutonium.
No.
You're right, it's not. But that's kind of like the whole point. So everything has a certain level. So like when they were, doing those Grable tests, for example, my father-in-law was involved in that Grable test.
What is that? What is that?
A bunch of Army guys that told to dig a ditch, and then the Army had a nuclear artillery. Okay, they fired a nuclear artillery shell that detonated 5 miles away. And after the detonation, it told all the guys, okay, men, get out and run into the nuclear blast.
That's insane.
Yeah, but they did it.
And then they're gone now.
They're all gone now. And we wonder why my father-in-law, I think it was 67, he had all kinds, why he died, okay? And his twin brother, who lived like 20 years more, okay?
So they didn't know that. They figured they were just guinea pigs,
Well, they were told that their shirt would protect them.
Oh, it's just ridiculous. Why would they do that? That's just evil. I mean, it's the guinea pigs. Like, why would they do
Your
that?
shirt will protect you. Now, that's kind of true about certain types of radiation. Your shirt will actually protect you. It's true that in an alpha discharge, a shirt will protect. Alpha is 2 protons and 2 neutrons, by the way. It'll protect you. Okay, that's why alpha is perfect for like if you ingest it like Bismuth 213.
Right.
to an antibody that's designed to go to a cancer cell, like leukemia, for example, because that alpha discharge would be like point blank. It's like, putting a gun to the cancer cell's head,
Right.
not damaging anything around it, okay? Most of the radiation we use today for cancer is actually beta, okay? And beta is a lot more dangerous, okay? Beta can actually go through aluminum and,
Now, I got a question. Maybe you can answer this. When you go to the dentist, and I know a lot about this, they always put that thing on you, the lead thing.
Lead.
But they have a thing that's focused at your mouth. That's what's taking that's what's going to be the X-ray.
Correct.
So what is that suit really doing for you? It's not your mouth is what's getting the X-ray, right? I mean, how is that really protecting you? I mean,
Well, you have organs.
yeah, but I mean,
Anytime you move,
is it really going to do anything? That one little
Okay.
shot of
An
X-ray? Or?
An X-ray is basically it's essentially there's a tube in it,
Uh-huh.
and they're moving a lot of electrons between a cathode and anode, and they're making X-rays. Okay, it's what I was telling last time we were here. We're talking about polywells. Okay, and these kids are getting guts from vacuum electron scopes that are making their own polywells, and they don't realize that they're generating like gobs of X-rays by doing this. And they're exposing themselves to lethal amounts because X-ray is basically a form of ionizing radiation. So they're covering you with that lead because the X-rays can't penetrate that lead, and they're only exposing a very small beam, but there's the scatter effect, okay, to your teeth, which they need to see.
Right.
So they're trying to limit your exposure, okay, to those teeth. But there have been people who have been permanently hurt by X-ray technologists by not dialing the right amount of power or the right amount of exposure and giving them overdoses.
Yeah, that's dangerous stuff.
Of the
man.
radiation stuff. 200,000 people a year die from medical malpractice, folks. It's the almost number one leading cause of death in this country. A lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, they
that.
just don't know what they were doing. Yeah, I could believe that. Sure.
So it's important that your radiation technician knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of medical, I mean, you obviously had to go through a lot of medical stuff in the last year and a half. Bob had a stroke and he recovered, and amazingly, because they were like, this is not good, and you were
Well,
able
I almost died.
Yeah, you really focused your energies and you were able to get back together, which it's not surprising. You have that kind of mind, and your focus is a tremendous thing. I mean, do you still do computer stuff?
I have a lot of faith. Okay, and that's important. I have a very beautiful, loving wife, and that's important.
That's very helpful.
You have to have. And when I was in all these tests and stuff, and I couldn't move, all I was thinking of was grandkids, and trying to make it to grandkids.
Right. So you
and
have some
you
goal
make it
to stay
living
there.
for. If you don't have anybody, I would have definitely croaked. I would like, who cares?
But this is the kind of thing that kind of hindered your you did a lot of computer. Writing codes and stuff like that. So that really had an effect on you, probably, right? Or
well, the reason why I probably had a stroke was because of the fact that I was fat. I mean, I'm not gonna pull any punches. I'm fat, folks. Fat. F-A-T. Fat. You don't get skinny by working 4 days and nights on code and drinking Joe Cola and whatnot to stay awake. And it's not good. I promised my wife after I finished my last coding, which I did, that I would stop writing code, and I did. I stopped, and I instead of I'm working for. I basically I'm essentially disabled since my stroke, so because I can't really type as I used to type like 150 words a minute. I can't really type anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You lose all that muscle memory. Like you have to learn how to do everything again, and so. Just getting back to doing normal things, like even lifting my arm above my head.
Right.
Like you see me doing now. All that was like months of work, okay?
Unbelievable.
So you take it all for granted. Even speaking without a slur.
Your speech was really impaired quite a bit, and you've come miles from where you were.
Again, that's because your whole right side is, and that's all part of it.
That's so frustrating. My God, I can't imagine.
Well, you're in this case, and you know that you sound screwed up. we could say FUBAR.
That's right. 10 o'clock, by the way, USB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook. This is Clam Radio. I'm talking to Bob Ball, computer scientist, among other things. And he had recovered from a massive stroke that he had. And he's here we're talking about radiation. We're talking about a bunch of things that affect us. And, I noticed that you do a lot of posting on Facebook, and you're always trying to, tell people about this stuff. But what can people really do about it? I think people feel helpless, so that's why they don't want to know. Like, radiation is not a sexy thing to talk about. They can't. What can they do about it?
Believe it or not, and I don't mean to be political, but actually, Trump did try to talk about it. One of his speeches, he tried to talk about, different types of energy and nuclear and stuff, and lifters. He had actually mentioned lifters because I got to him, and all the media kept doing was focusing on nuclear. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to talk about the fact that there is different types of nuclear power. Just like, okay, right now our nuclear power reactors are they're like vacuum tubes, and we don't use vacuum tubes for computers.
Right.
They're really based in 1947. So a lifter is actually very, very, very different. It's passively in every single way, which means if you take away too much heat, it makes more heat. It becomes more critical because the atoms cool down, and when they cool down, they heat up. And so it's dynamically stable that way. If it gets too hot, it cools down because there's so it'll go with the load that's put on the unit. And also there's a safety plug on the bottom so that if you have to, you just take away that safety plug and the whole reactor can go into a drain tank, and there's no moderator of graphite in the drain tank. It'll just turn into a big rock of salt. It's no big deal. So it's extremely safe, okay? It doesn't work under pressure, okay? It requires a thing called Hastelloy N, which is a special type of nickel alloy piping. They use it, believe it or not, for solar panels farms that they have mirrors set up, and they work on those towers that heat up molten salt. Believe it or not, they took all the Hastelloy N from Oak Ridge, and they used it in that, which is so stupid because it's taking up a huge amount of space, and it only works when the sun is out, and it doesn't even work that efficient. So it's just, it's junk science. It makes people feel good. Well, the sun is out there and it's good and stuff. And meanwhile, the thing that actually is real solar power, stored solar power is in wood, it's in oil, it's in coal. Actually, we need that carbon in the atmosphere. Global warming, by the way, isn't from carbon in the atmosphere, okay? 92% of the greenhouse gas in the Earth's atmosphere is actually water vapor, okay? But we've discussed this before. There is a nuclear event going on, a volcano caused by a nuclear reactor in the Earth, okay? We have thorium and uranium in the Earth that's causing a fission reaction that's keeping everything going. That's going on, okay? That volcanic activity is going on in the South Pole. That's what's melting that ice. Has nothing to do with it. It's the same thing in Greenland. That's what's melting. 90% of the electricity in Greenland, by the way, is geothermal. Yellowstone is having problems. Something's going on, okay?
Clearly.
Nobody wants to talk about it, okay? But why is all this happening now, okay? You get people saying, well, it's the end times. It's biblical. It's the end times.
It's always going to be the end times.
Okay. Well,
they can always say that.
There's a reason why this is happening. And the reason why is because if you have a scintillator, which my son made, guess what? Unbelievable amounts of cosmic rays. See, when the solar wind is so reduced, cosmic rays from other solar systems and other parts of the galaxy actually get to come in. Now, what they do is they actually create clouds in our atmosphere, and they change the criticality of nuclear reactions, fission reactions, okay? I'll explain to you what that is. We discussed this before. Say you have a room, and you have a whole bunch of mouse traps in the room.
Right.
Okay.
I like this
so
analogy.
if I throw a ping pong ball into that room, it'll set off, 2, 3, 4 mouse traps, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Well, if I put a whole bunch of ping pong balls on top of those mouse traps, Now I just throw one, and it'll just like
All of them go
all
off,
of them
yeah,
will go.
right.
Okay. Well, those proton streams in the sun, those cosmic rays, they are affecting how many ping pong balls you have in that room. We have control rods in our reactors that affect those ping pong balls in the room. They ain't working. They're not working.
They're not working,
And we
yeah.
have pools of radioactive waste that's becoming critical. Okay, that's not supposed to become critical. That's why all these plants are leaking, because the metal has what's known as called a certain capability to it. But nuclear reactors are not a nice place. There's gamma rays, there's neutrons, and what you have a specific type of thing called neutron flux. So it's bombarding this metal all the time, and it fatigues the metal. They don't even know how it's fatiguing the metal. But these reactors are 35, 40 years old. They were only designed for 25 years. Okay, that would, and they're having problems with them. They're all leaking because now, can they fix the problem? Sure, but do they want to fix the problem? No.
Why not?
Money. Okay. Huge amounts of money.
This is ridiculous. We make up the money. This is talking about life. We're talking about here. Money is what's it gives people jobs. Fix it. Like I don't get it. I just don't understand.
If they fixed it and did it the right way, which they could do. Okay, they could clean up every single radioactive site on this planet. They could clean up. They could clean up everything. They could do it with a lifter. Okay, now that's a stepping stone. The lifter, the coal, is to help us. We need coal right now because we need to build these lifters. It's going to take us 5 years to build all of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Last time I was here, we talked about fusion. We have fusion. Okay. I have no idea where fusion is right now because, again, this is the press. We know. I saw it 2 years ago. Lockheed had a CFR, a compact fusion reactor, running. Okay. But then it went into the dark. There's no news about it whatsoever.
Didn't you say that Google has one or somebody? They don't want to
Google
talk about
has
it?
ECAT. That's 144 of these units are about this big, and they produce 14 kV apiece, and they use palladium, and they convert they're cold fusion reactors. Essentially, you could buy one for your house, and you wouldn't need anything. No energy, nothing for the next 15, 20 years.
Well, you can't buy one, though.
But
right?
This is exactly my point.
Learn
yeah.
to build one, then, I guess. What
Well,
else
they
is-
can buy one because,
Well, yeah.
and
sure.
Mark Zuckerberg, who knows what he's got,
Right.
because he's part of the elite. Was like they have one rules for them and another rule. It's like Hillary. This is not political, folks. This is Democratic or Republican, doesn't matter. Okay,
Right.
I work for this company. You take an oath. The oath is for life. Okay, and when you see a person that puts people's Title 18, she can't even technically she can't even take the oath of office because. Essentially, if you destroy, mutilate any record, so and so to the government,
Right.
then you're no longer can take office position. But we're talking lives were put at risk and so on. So that's a violation. 1982 Act and 52 Act, FOIA request. A whole bunch of rules were broken. She should be in jail. Okay, look what happened to Petraeus. And those few notes that he had were in his house, and his house was guarded 24/7. And it's not like, he was disseminating this stuff all over the planet, okay, which she was. So, if you want to vote for Bernie, whatever, that's fine, but no. This is not a Republican Democrat issue. This is a national security thing. And people like me, that's just very big. Because so we had this discussion before, okay. There are very bad actors out there.
Yeah.
And these people should not have this data. They shouldn't have access to it. They need, and you should be making it harder for them, not easier. And she made it very easy for them. Because she didn't want people to see what she was doing in the future. I don't get that. I don't want to get into the political aspects of it, but we're not. We're talking. We either are living in a world that's 1776, so nobody is above the law, just like Nixon, nobody was above the law, or we're living in 1775 and we have kings and queens.
Right. Exactly.
So, I believe that nobody is above the law. I believe that everybody is as unique as a snowflake, and no matter who they are, okay, they all have some unique niche and talent, and there's a place for you. You have, if you're listening to this, whatever you are, you have a talent. You have unique skill that you can do a bit better than anybody, okay? And there's a place for you, okay? But, positive thinking and vision has to take over.
Mm-hmm.
We have too many people, negatively, talking about stuff and not talking about, positive things, like the Russians. Russians are just like us. I have many friends that are Russian.
Right, of course.
They're just like us. They're very hardworking, very intelligent, smart people. And they want, really to go and do things. And we have an opportunity to go and do things, okay, with Russia. Now, I don't agree with everything that Putin does, but the fact is that, better to put the swords down and go to the moon, Mars, whatever.
Right, have a global mission
and share
yeah, sure,
that tech where we can make a real difference here on the planet. We can bring a washing machine to those 5 billion people. Okay, just think alone, just a washing machine and fresh water to those 5 billion people. What a human resource you'll free up. Just by doing that.
Right, but don't you think there's the Illuminati that wants to control people to the point where they don't want to see that happen? That sounds more like something that's just too logical. I mean, there's greedy people out there that control everything.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Putin has done a few things recently that he's put a warrant out for the arrest of George Soros.
Soros,
he's got my full support with that, and a lot of those Rothschild, he put a full arrest warrant on them too, because a lot of people don't realize they're working with fiat currencies, which are real evil in themselves. Basically, Nixon went off the gold standard, and really it all goes back to 1913, and so, basically, energy is the real money, folks. That's the reality. I mean,
right.
You really do everything for energy. Food is energy, okay? Water, you need water to survive, but if you don't have energy, you can't make it, okay? Energy is the real money. And really the pursuit of oil and wars and what the whole of the planet is
right.
really the pursuit of energy. So I say, fine, if they want to blow themselves off for the Middle East, go to it, Let's work on this here so we don't need that. And then when we have this so cheap, then maybe these people will say, well, gee, maybe we can do something else. Because, I don't know if you've ever seen those areas, but I mean, they're just not working with a full deck.
Right.
I mean, what they're doing, the women throwing acid and burning people in cages and stuff. I mean, we're talking 900 AD stuff,
Yeah, it's pretty medieval stuff going on there. I don't know, man. It's like
I couldn't even do that to a rat, okay?
Right.
I don't think I could do that to a cockroach. And they're doing it to human beings. I know for a fact that Russia, all their brilliance in the 80s, they made nuclear suitcases, which are 1.4 kiloton devices, no bigger than the suitcase I have in front of you.
That's not good.
And there's 20 of them that are missing.
That's not good at all.
And with the open border to the south, who's to say that somebody doesn't smuggle one of those in and,
It could happen. It could happen.
And then everybody's all about the rights of this. Well, let me tell you something. Okay. Say you have a person. We're getting way off the subject here, but this needs to be discussed. Say you have the person in custody, right?
Right.
And they know where this device is. They have a lead, and you're gonna give them a lawyer?
That's interesting. What's that all about? Oh, somehow we got some feedback there. Cool. You said the word lawyer, and all of a sudden, feedback. That's weird.
What about those 7 million lives? What about the talent? What about those people?
What are you saying? We should do whatever we can to get that information out of the person,
And
right?
certain-
Don't they have like sodium pentanol or some sort of thing that would just make them tell the truth or something? I mean, what's the big deal?
I
don't-
say to you that whatever drug, anything, trickery, Mission Impossible trickery. Mission Impossible it used to be a show on every week. They did all kinds of trickery stuff. It was actually very cool.
Very cool.
But whatever they have to do to find out where that suitcase is, you know what?
You got to do it because
You got to do
You got to
it.
protect everybody.
You got to
sure.
do it because you're talking about 7 million people, okay? And it's just like, you watch 9/11 and you're saying to yourself, well, why the heck weren't our ATIS stuff up? Why weren't these planes interceptors? Why weren't these pilots who they were tracking stopped? Why weren't instructors that were calling the FBI telling them that these pilots were being instructed told to go ahead? Why weren't they, it's almost like they knew it was going, they had information that it was going to happen.
Right.
And they did nothing to stop it.
Wow.
And you're saying to yourself, those people are gone, folks. That genome is gone. Think about all the generations, the millions of generations it took to put those people in place at that specific time on this planet. And all that genetic, all that information, all that talent is now gone. Gone from the earth, gone from the universe, gone forever. And that's the sin of murder, okay? The sin of murder is more than just killing that person. You're not only killing that person, you're killing all the people that that person can have.
Right.
All the offspring that that person can create. Whether they're male or female, you're killing that, okay? And who knows what that great-grandson is capable of, or that great-granddaughter is capable of. But you're killing it. That's why...
Well, somebody could also take the thing, well, maybe you saved people from that great-granddaughter might have been a total nightmare, might have caused problems. So somebody could always say the opposite of that. I mean, it could be another Hitler out there. I don't know.
Hitler was created because of the environment, because of the Versailles Treaty. If we didn't have the Versailles Treaty, Hitler would never have been created. Because the environment never would have been that.
Yeah,
whenever you have chaos, whenever you have, like Venezuela right now, people like talking, Bernie this, Bernie, free this, free that. I'm going to tell you why free is not good, folks, okay? Anytime you give somebody free, it makes them lazy, okay? No offense, but it does. Look what the United States did to this poor American Indians, okay? They've been given free life for like a long time, and it's just so destructive to the civilization. It's not funny. You have to give people the opportunity and the education to teach them how to fish rather than just give them fish, okay?
Right.
So it's that way with all things. Now with Venezuela, the state took over all their industry. So when the state is mismanaging stuff, well, everything falls apart. When everybody's dependent upon the state and the state fails, now they don't have any food.
Right.
They don't have any water.
That could be an issue, sure.
They don't have any. It's just like Germany, where they were taking wheelbarrows to get a loaf of bread. It's basically the same way there.
Wow.
Fiat currencies never end good. Never.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole purpose of money is supposed to represent work, which means, say, I'm a guy who makes and has an apple orchard, and I harvest those apples and I make apple pies. But you really like my apple pies, but I like your cheese. You go out every day and you gather milk and you make cheese, and you've been storing this cheese and aging cheese. So I want some rolls of your cheese. You want a couple of my apple pies.
There you go.
But you also need some blacksmithing. It became reasonable to find something that was just as rare to represent our physical value of work. Okay, so that's where we have silver coinage and gold coinage, because they're very rare earth elements. Okay, and they're very pure. If you look at them on the periodic table, they're actually in a row, and they're underneath copper and aluminum for a reason. Okay. The thing that people don't understand is that the reason why they're rare is because of the fact that it wouldn't do any good if it was just a piece of wood, okay? Because then somebody could spend all day making pieces of wood and, buying that apple pie or that cheese wheel that took you a whole 6 months to make.
Right.
So you had to get something of equal value.
Right.
Okay, and that's where Cornish came in. Paper currency is off the rails. I mean, they're making paper currency with all the quantum easy stuff. It's crazy. There's like so many trillions of dollars. You know, it's only a matter of time before the wave hits here.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Before the stuff becomes worthless, and it's gonna be bad. So you know, prepare, people. That's all I gotta say. Prepare. But you know, we like to talk about at least positive things.
Right. Do you think it was a positive thing about the Apple situation where Apple said they didn't want to give them the information about how to unlock the phone? How do you think? What do you feel about that? You know, since you are a computer person.
Yes and no. Okay. As a computer person, I say, well, you know, I unfortunately I worked for this government a long time ago. Okay. And there's a reason why I got out. It's kind of the reason why you possibly, if you have any brain in your head, you can probably realize that, you know, that my technology was not used for the good or the use that it was associated with it. Okay?
Right. They use it for
let's
negative.
put it that way. Okay.
Right.
One of the things I've always talked to John about is that he always sees how I strain to find a technology that can be only used for good, and he realizes it's a hard thing to do.
Extremely difficult.
It's a hard thing to do.
Somebody will take it and do something.
So when it comes to the phone issue, I want to know about these terrorists and their organization and whatnot. Okay, I got that. Okay, but two things. Number one, unfortunately, our government leaks. So if Apple builds a backdoor into the technology, gives it to the government's supposed to keep it hush hush, forget it. Okay, it'll be in the bad guy's hands in no time.
Right.
And Apple knows this. So they're like, we're gonna give it to you, but look you're leaking like a sieve. Okay.
Yeah, so we're not gonna tell you.
So we're not gonna tell you. It's like stupid. But then you have to say to yourself, they just spent $15 billion of our hard-earned money, which they don't seem to care, in a 2.5 mile facility, basically the NSA built out in New Mexico.
In New Mexico,
Nevada, I think it's in one of those western states. Okay, and you're telling me with all their prowess, okay, and all their state-of-the-art computer guys, all right, that they couldn't break into an iPhone? If they can't do that, okay, and I happen to know a few guys who can, we're in real trouble. Now, I don't believe that for a minute. I believe that they wanted to build a backdoor into the phones so, you know, they could mine the data like Apple does. Apple already has essentially a backdoor into the phones, but they use it for mining their own data for pushing product and, you know, getting money, seeing trends and stuff. They're not doing nefarious things with it, like thinking about your privacy. They really don't care. But they're looking at what kind of jeans did you buy last month and stuff like that. And they're using that to develop, you know, their next product line. That's essentially what Apple's doing. So I am not for Apple doing it, and I'm leery at the fact that our government couldn't do it.
That is kind of suspicious. I don't know, man.
So if the government's telling the truth, and they couldn't get into that phone without spending they spent like $3 million on that firm in Israel to break into the phone.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Okay. Then I want my $15 billion back.
Yeah, really? What's going on? What's the point?
I want it back. At least I want to be able to use the facility. I know for a fact I could use that facility to do a lot of good. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because right now, as far as I'm concerned, if you can't break into an iPhone, we're in real trouble. Okay? Real, you know, big trouble. Okay?
Yeah. All right, we are talking to Bob Ball. It is 10:25 here on WUSB 90.1 FM. This is Clam Radio, hour number 2. Bill Bengdolte will be here at 11 o'clock. He's in the other room, laughing. He seems like he's having a good time. Doesn't have his red cap on, so that means it's got to be pretty warm out there today.
It's very warm.
But, well, you had a couple of requests for some songs. Can we want to break for a song and then pick up where we left off? We have
Sure.
What do you feel like doing? What's your program? You want to talk about robots? What do you want to talk about?
Whatever you want to do, John. It's your show.
Okay.
If you want to talk about robots. Believe me,
Robots
I've been sitting for
scare
a
me,
whole
man.
year
They
staring
scare
at
me.
my computer screen while between physical therapy appointments.
Yeah.
I have a lot to say.
Well, robots. I've seen that they've gotten pretty good at building robots that you can kick and push and they get back up. And I'm like,
No red switch, John.
you need to have the switch.
No red switch. I mean, let me tell you this, okay? I believe it or not, you can curse me for this
All right.
because I am one of the first people. I programmed the first CAD/CAM system on the planet. That's right, I did it. Before me, they were typing in 14 digits to get the stupid machine to move from one coordinate to another. Okay, it came up to me to make a program to have this thing actually drill out PC boards. Okay, for our space program. Okay, because my father wanted me to enter the coordinate. I didn't want to do it, so that's the key to a programmer is being lazy. So the lazier the programmer is, the actually more fruitful they are.
Right. You want to do the least amount of work. You get the thing to do it.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
But with all that, okay, that machine had a red button. Okay, you could hit this red button, and there were several red buttons in the room, by the way.
Yeah.
But if you hit this red button, shut everything off. In case of an emergency,
Right.
you have that red button. Okay, and in plants, Ford plant, every single plant, Volkswagen, you name it, every plant, they have robots and whatnot. All over the shop floor, they have red buttons.
Shut
and
it
guess
off.
what those red buttons do? They shut the crap off. Okay? So that, God forbid, if there's a problem and some guy got his hand caught or whatever, or something's going wrong,
can shut it
everything,
off.
and they can shut it off. Okay? So when you see Boston Dynamics, okay,
Right.
and they got these machines doing this, and that one guy, that was doing inventory on the shelf and
Yeah,
moving
right.
boxes and stuff,
Right.
and this other guy's kicking the boxes, I'm starting to say to myself, this is bad.
Yeah.
This is a program that learns, okay? And who's to say that this program's not going to learn to say, this human's getting in my way?
Right. I don't care. Let's go right past them. Exactly.
And all of a sudden, it's a problem. So I say to every single scientist that's out there, if you're a scientist in any way, shape, or form, you need to read Shelley. And we're talking, Frankenstein. And understand that none of you, and I'll talk to the atheists around you, are God, okay? And when you think you're that, you're in trouble. Because guess what? The job's already taken, and you're not God. And if you don't be humble with your technology, it will cause problems.
Dangerous. Very dangerous.
And so I have no problems with these robots, none at all, as long as I see
There's a
the red button.
Yeah.
And you can red button. There's a red button. So no problem.
Well, why wouldn't you put a red button on it? I don't understand. Like, why would people not do that? I mean, they're looking for trouble.
Have you never had your iPhone crash?
Yeah, it's crashed. Sure.
Have you never had your computer crash?
It's not a lot like it used to, but yeah, it's crashed.
Have you
sure.
never had your car not start?
Yes.
Okay. Are there cars that the brakes don't work?
Sure, all the time.
Does stuff break?
Yeah, that's the nature.
It's
of
not perfect. Yes.
Right, absolutely.
That means you need an emergency off switch that works on the power supply that does what?
Keeps the thing going.
Shuts
Sure.
it down.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay? Until you find out what the heck is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So you have analog algorithms that are running these computers now, that are programming other analog algorithms, that are programming other analog algorithms.
So who knows what's doing
They
what?
don't even know.
Yeah.
They don't know. I know that because when I was doing a job for Apple, I was talking a lot to these Indian guys because all the chips for Intel were basically done in India. And why do you need to do this? Why do you do that? And I'm like, ugh, I need to know it because I'm writing machine code. I was trying to explain to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't understand that something is being executed 6 billion times a day You want to make it as small as possible. The difference in writing something by hand, you can make it maybe 100,000 lines, of code versus a compile that could be 1 million, and there's a big difference. So those 1 million lines of code running 6 billion times a day make a big difference. And basically, a lot of people don't realize that. Today they talk about quantum, they talk about this. The only thing that's really advanced over the last 60 years, I would say, is we've gotten smaller miniaturization and software. We've learned to cheat better. But basically all these computers do, including the one that's in front of you, is just an add.
Right.
And until we get into photons and we, a quantum, teleportation, entangled machine, which, takes a tremendous amount of money to make, but would be 1 million times more powerful than what we have today. There's no vision.
You don't think they're working on it?
No.
No? You don't think so?
It would take 2.5 billion just to build a factory, just to make the crystals.
But there's many a billionaires. How can people just not get together and do? I don't get it. Like, why?
I can turn around to a bank tomorrow. Okay, this comes into the lifted problem. I could turn around to a bank tomorrow and say, okay, well, I'm going to build an oil platform in the Gulf. It's going to cost me $13 billion. And this well is going to produce X amount because I've built 50 wells before.
Right.
So I have a track record of what, and they're going to give me the $13 billion. They'll give it to me.
Right, because they know.
But then if I say to them, okay, well, I'm going to build a lifter. We've run into this problem before.
Yeah.
I'm going to build a lifter, okay, and it's going to cost $1 billion, okay. And some of the elements are going to cost $100 to $150 million, okay. But we can then, once we make that factory, we can then make them for $5 million a piece, because that's what it's going to cost to make up the tooling make the tooling to produce these things. It's not like a nuclear reactor today that's built on site. Okay, you can actually build these in a factory and put them on a truck and take them wherever. Okay, you know what to say? Don't let the door hit you in the butt.
Right, of course they don't want you to do that. Right.
They said the same thing to me with the SA-3. Okay, we came up with the SA-3, 92, 93. And I went to them and I said, well, I think I can do this. And it'll cost, $200,000, but I need $1 million for it to get it off the ground and go with it and whatnot. Well, how sure are you? They're saying to me. Well, I'm almost sure, but could I say that I was positive?
Right.
No, I couldn't say 100%. I said, well, I'm 95% sure. Because I was 95% sure that my theory back then was going to actually work. And they're like, well, I'm sorry. Did it deter me? No. Okay. Did I do it with my own money, my own time, and own sweat? Yes. You used to come to my house and see me working on this whole gargantuan machine.
Yeah, sure.
Now, did I do it? Yep. Did it work? Yep. Did I prove the theory? Yep. And nobody else could do it. And they wanted it real bad. Real bad. Okay? But what did they want it for? They wanted to shelve the technology because it was making their technology, which they spent millions of dollars on, look like crap. And that's why they wanted it. They wanted to shelve it. They even told us they were going to shelve it. Well, we're sorry, but it competes with this. We spend a lot of money on it. But you understand, right? No. I don't understand.
Well,
I don't understand.
So.
It's like Tesla. Tesla had all this stuff figured out, folks. He had all these things that we're seeing now figured out then,
right.
Okay? And he was so far ahead of the curve. It was incredible, okay? But you had people like J.P. Morgan and other people who wanted and said, he wants to give away this energy for free.
For free, I can't go with
free. Not realizing that the free energy would free up a tremendous amount of human labor to actually do and create other things and make them more productive. And can you imagine where we would be now? It wasn't free energy, folks. Okay, it was harnessing the solar wind by induction and then powering the planet. So it was kind of a big, fancy, dancy transformer. It wasn't free.
Right.
Okay, but it vision. Okay, vision. Okay, and what do we have today? Obama promised us a space. We have no space program, no manned space flight, really. We have to hitch rides up into a space station that we're going to turn over to the Russians that are going to crash it into the Earth's atmosphere in 2020.
Don't they have SpaceX? They're trying to do something. Isn't there like a private thing or like
a private thing that they're doing that we could have done 40 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. Are they ever going to have the money to develop type of nuclear power to get the government to give them the regulations, but the government's controlled by who? Does GE have lobbyists that say, "Oh no, that's going to undermine us"? Does Shell Oil have lobbyists that's going to undermine us? Does ExxonMobil have lobbyists that are going to undermine us? Does the Koch brothers have lobbyists that are going to see? This is what you're fighting, okay? This is why, I hate to say this, but, people don't realize when you see a guy like Trump take no money from these people and push it away, that's why he's fighting everything, because all the lobbyists are being put out of business, okay? And that's why, they're all against him. He's been misquoted, too. He does it on purpose, by the way. He wants to get in the media, and people look up those actual quotes. But that's besides the point. Like I said, he mentioned nuclear one time in a speech, and people are so paranged to it that it's incredible. Helen Condon did such a great job,
Interesting.
Because she basically thinks that solar and wind is the way of the future, and the energy, gruel of low energy, and you can get it done, and off-grid living and whatnot. No, I'm sorry. That's not the way it works. If you have cheap, free energy, you can have hydroponics, aquabogs, all kinds of things. You can cure famine. You can cure water. You can cure diseases. You can free up human beings to actually go out throughout the known solar system and do things.
Yes.
It just takes vision.
So do you think that there's a parallel universe where these things have happened, or you don't think there's a parallel universe?
Well,
they keep coming up with these things.
We talked about this. We talked about space-time.
Space-time, folks.
Space-time is basically. John came up with this, actually. You should be very proud of John here. I was going to talk about a loaf of bread. He wanted to talk about a meatloaf, so we turned the whole universe and space-time into a meatloaf. And we were talking about Gomax or QMax.
You're right, Gomax, I think.
Yeah, it's a unique planet that's 10 billion light years from Earth. And there's a guy on there with a crystal player that's listening to John's song, "Many Is the Night" or something like that. That he's hearing the bootleg copy for the first time, and it's current to him, and it's really neat. And we talked about he's on the same slice. If I took a knife and I went through that meatloaf, he's on the same slice of now that we are, but he's 10 billion light years away. But it doesn't matter. They're moving exactly parallel to us. And I said to him, if this guy got on his speeder and moved away from us at 10 kilometers per hour, a funny thing happens to that slice of knife of the meatloaf that he's making, that the angle, because of the 10 billion light years and the fact he's moving, is so little angle, but it actually magnify into a big time. It'd be approximately 200 years when Beethoven was finishing his Fifth Symphony. And John says, "Oh, okay," and then what would happen if he comes towards us? So, we go 200 years into the future, which means that the past, present, and future are all the same. Okay, the time is essentially you're passing through slices, and each slice, depending on the angle and whatnot, is a universe onto itself. That's where the multi-universe comes into effect. That's why they are seeing this multi-universe. Okay. They don't realize that really the whole universe and everything is electric. And there's electric fields from outside space-time that's actually holding everything together.
So what's outside space-time? Is our place in the universe, is this a subset of something even bigger?
Well,
You know, is it like the Men in Black kind of thing, or you know?
I can tell you this, okay, from my own experience. And you can say it's a delusional whatever since you died and you were unconscious and
Well, that's real to you.
Okay, so when I was out, I had this illusion and I was on like a thin rope escalator. I was standing on it. I could keep in balance, no problem. And I was going up to a place that there was light and everything. And below me was this big pit and like an LIE of people, all sides falling into it. And it was really dark and not a good place. Okay. And the vibe that I got from it, not a good place. And the other vibe I got was that this whole meatloaf of space-time is basically a big test. And we're either going to pass the test or not pass the test. And the selfish people among us and repentant people are going to pass the test. Selfish people, not so much. And so I won't say, even to ISIS, go to HE double toothpicks. Because I can tell you from my own experience that that's not a good place to go to. Now, that's what I saw, okay? Okay, and then I woke up and there was, 6 doctors above me and all kinds of people working on me, and they were giving me, what do you call it, paddle things and whatnot.
Mm-hmm, sure.
And because everything stopped. Okay, that's how bad the stroke was. Everything, the brain stem is basically in charge of like all your autonomic functions and keeping things working and whatnot. And it's not good when it doesn't work. So when it doesn't work, those things don't work, and you tend to die. Okay, so it's not a good thing. Okay, but it's what it is. But I got the biggest impression that life here was a big test. And the challenges that are put before you are there to make you stronger. And it's not how you succeed. It's how you succeed. Okay.
What does that mean?
There's ways of succeeding. Okay, I'll give you an example.
Example, please. EX.
You've been to my house and you helped me split wood.
Yes, at one point.
So I can either have the wood delivered and pay for it and it's there, or we can split wood. I got a lot more satisfaction out of splitting that wood.
Okay.
And because it was some kind of work equity, but you could see the results of your work. And with programming and mixing and doing things, it was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Taking your stuff and making it sound better was one of the great satisfactions of my life, because it was hard work. Okay, it was not easy to do that. And John had the patience of a saint, because when I first brought him the first versions of his music, they were just awful. And he was sitting there and in silence writing these notes on stuff, and just what must have been like drilling cavities in his tooth, listening to his precious songs be destroyed by my technology.
Well, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it had potential. I mean, what you want to hear. So it was definitely, there's impetus to want to hang out and check it out and see how you're going to do it.
But we got to an incredible place,
right?
And to where that, it sounded like he went into a $1.2 million studio, and he knew that. He's like, I can't get that sound.
No, still can't get that sound.
I can't get that sound. He's like, I can't get that sound.
No,
I used to make pianos go above and below. I had an actual above and below sound stage. And
that's interesting. Yeah,
we did a couple of mixes for Sonia Data, and the guy Rob Faboni was like, I'm out of a job. I remember we were saying that. No, I didn't want to put him out of a job. I was just like having fun with what he was presenting us, because they were like suspicious or something.
But a question I have for you, I mean, I understand what you're saying in terms of what you've experienced, between maybe heaven or hell or whatever. But what do you say about people who they're born into a situation where they've been giving negative stuff, and so they do negative stuff? Like they don't know any better. Like, And how can you better yourself if you don't know any better? Are they bad people, or are they just?
I've
you know what
I've
I'm
always
saying?
said this, and I'll say it again. I think we're all born with a certain amount of genetic talent. We're all a unique snowflake.
Right. I agree with you.
Your
Sure,
environment can be presented with the opportunity to learn and do things, or you could be presented with the opportunity not. To all the atheists out there, I'll say to you this, okay? Even if you don't believe in God, you should still tell the state or anybody that you do, and I'll tell you why. Because the minute that you say that you don't, the states will say, well, then we give you the right to be free, to speak your mind. Your Bill of Rights come from us, okay? And the Constitution, a Bill of Rights come from a creator, okay? And it's very important to make that distinction, that your Bill of Rights come from a creator, not the state. Because if it comes from a creator, it can't be taken away. If it comes from the state, it can. So it's very, very important to understand that aspect of it. But as another aspect of it, I say to you again, how hard is it, okay, to make a life when nature itself, okay, left to its own devices, cannot organize, will not organize, okay, will not create life? How can you look at DNA? DNA does work. It replicates itself. It stores information. It does work. Okay, there had to be intelligence behind it. So people say, well, great, the aliens came here and they gave it to us. Well, where did they come from? See, it doesn't, you have to say to yourself, evolution. Okay, well, evolution. Well, if evolution is so apparent, how come it took us only, 700,000 years to go from a caveman to the moon? And yet dinosaurs were here and, for, we'll say 150 million years. We know it was longer than that. And there's nothing. They didn't even build a house, folks. A house. There's no roads. There's no transportation. There's no satellites. There's no nothing. Okay? Where was their evolution? What? Whales were not smart enough? They went into the ocean. They're very smart. Dolphins were not smart enough? They're very smart. What happened? How come? Why?
Not necessary. In their environment, it's not necessary to have to build those things.
Why not?
Because they're more protected in the water.
What about
perhaps,
when man started hunting them? Why didn't they develop technology or communications?
Well, that's a point.
They could talk over miles. Why were they hunted for hundreds of years and they didn't do anything? Why wouldn't they form groups and attack us? And as a social element, they could attack us. They could have sunk all those ships back then. All those whaling ships could have been sunk by an organized rebellion of whales. They were intelligent enough. They had the ability to do it. They were large enough to mount a physical attack to take out our boats. Now, how come they didn't do that?
Because they don't have that extra gene that makes people want to destroy stuff, I guess. I mean, why is that? Why are human beings able to do it?
They kill things all the time.
Yeah.
They kill their own all the time. How come?
Yeah, but they do it for sport? I don't know.
They do it for social order.
Well,
the point is,
that's like
they
insects.
communicated and they knew that they were under distress. They knew that they were being hunted down. So why wasn't there a Moby Dick?
I don't know.
Why wasn't there an actual onslaught onto human beings that were doing this to them?
You're right. There should have been, but there wasn't. They didn't have that kind of
You're
mentality.
not seeing the leap here, okay? You see, why have monkeys not evolved at all? And since the known history of mankind, monkeys are monkeys, tigers are tigers. How come they haven't evolved? If evolution is so, look, we see I'll give you a case in point. We have manipulated and bred dogs of all different types. Basically, 500 years ago, 99% of dog breeds didn't exist. So over the past 500 years, we've had all these dog breeds, come out, and they came out because we made them. It comes down to a fact that actually all humankind, all humans come down to 6 people. By the way, all dogs come down to the same 6 dogs.
Oh.
They're just as incestuous as us. I find that very coincidental. Now, we would not be here if it wasn't for the dogs. We need dogs.
Yeah, dogs are for hunting.
Okay,
and
think
for
about what this
protection.
life was all about. They've okay. Another given example. Suppression of data. We talked about this last time. They dug up a mammoth bone that was green. Okay, that means there was scripture done onto it. Okay, when the bone was green, it was found in Mexico over 400,000 years ago. That's 380,000 years before we even supposed to be on this continent. Before there was supposed to be a land bridge. Before there was, they don't know what they're talking about. We got pyramids on every single continent on this earth.
Right.
More accurate, there's been a loss of technology. Like I said, who knows? This could have been Robinson Crusoe.
That's right. Sure.
You don't know. And I can see how. I really can. Because they're suppressing what's going on now. And they're not talking about it. You can't see that the news isn't talking about Fukushima. They're going to hold the Olympics in Tokyo. They don't care. Okay? They're just not talking about the problems that are happening. The 40 volcanoes, isn't that a little bit coincidental? All these earthquakes? What the heck is going on? Why is the Earth doing all this now? There seems to be an excess amount of energy inside the Earth. Of course there's an excess amount of energy inside the Earth. There's the nuclear reaction and thorium and uranium that's in the core of our planet is going crazy, and that's because of the criticality of those elements. They're more critical, there's more fission reaction.
Right.
And it's the same thing that's happening at all these nuclear reactors throughout the world. And stored nuclear waste, too. And they're not talking about it.
What can we do? What can the average person do about this stuff? And
Well-
why? Because you say, people are... I mean, Facebook's not a limited thing to the people that you know, but a lot of people see that stuff and they think probably like, well, what can I do about it? So, okay, these are problems. What can I do? Being aware of it's one thing, but what can I do?
Well, the first thing they can do, which is one phrase, energy is the real money. That's number
Right,
one.
okay.
So if they spread that and they say energy is the real money, and that really is the truth. If you think about it, that is the truth of everything. Energy is the real money. The next thing, we need a real manned space program. And I'll tell you why. Because I don't care about the rocks on the moon. I don't care about the rocks on Mars. I care about the image of it. And I care about the technology that we need to go to those places.
Right.
Because the spin-offs have a huge effect. And you're not going to get those technologies without the necessity of going to the moon and Mars. You're not going to get it here on Earth. And we've seen you're not going to get it here on the Earth because for 47 years we have done nothing. And that technology has become stagnant because
Well, what
of
can
it.
we do about it, though? How can you gather up people enough to say, look, this is where we want our money to go? It's our country, not just a bunch of people that run it. Everybody runs it. Everybody's part of it. I want my taxes to go to something good, not to a negative thing. I'm going to people's pockets. How do we go about doing that?
It's very hard. It's very hard because what's happened is that there is so many. We have essentially since JFK died, we've had corruption, and the corruption has been incredible. Where now you have just people are controlling things that are in Congress, and they're controlled by their lobbyists and their strings.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and
That's
they're
what I'm
doing
saying.
whatever those people tell them to do, and they've run everything into the ground, and they don't care. They only, it's almost like rollerball. They just care about these super corporations.
So how can you defeat that? Even if you had somebody that's independent, like Trump, thinks independently of this stuff. Even if somebody like that gets in office, how could he have control? He'll say something, and they'll shoot him. Like, what? We don't want that. How do you do it?
Well,
we have to be attacked by an asteroid.
It's
This
easy.
way, everybody's got to say, we're all going to die.
It's easy. I tell you, it's easy to protect a guy like Trump. All he's got to do is pick the proper vice president. So if he picks like Newt Gingrich, nobody will shoot him.
Well, okay, I see what you're saying. If you pick somebody on a more negative thing like that, sure.
But Newt Gingrich is actually a good pick for him because he knows Congress and works from lists. So Trump can actually turn it all around because of that. Now, Trump is not perfect, but nobody is. But the one thing Trump knows how to do is he knows that government regulations and whatnot, is what's strangling this country. He's very nationalistic because I'll tell you what Trump has, and he has grandchildren, and he knows what's going on really, and he knows that if he wants those grandchildren to have kids, these things have to be stopped. And he knows that, but he can only say so much. Even though he's been as politically incorrect as he could be, he knows that he tried the N-word out. And literally, folks, the nuclear word is just as toxic as the other N-word. And NASA won't say it. Nobody wants to say it. And what the other the radiation is the other bad word. People don't want to say radiation either,
right.
you know. And you know, it needs to be talked about. These problems need to be addressed, and we need to cap Fukushima. We need to find out and talk about what's going on in this country, and we need to talk about the magnetic flip of the Earth and what's happening. And nobody. When was the last time you saw a weather report discuss the reason why we have all these typhoons and cyclones that are directly tied?
They don't discuss it.
The
Maybe they don't even know
earthquakes
it.
are directly tied to the sun. The cyclones are directly tied to the sun. We're electrically coupled in this whole solar system to the sun. Whatever happens on the sun is affecting us here on Earth. It's been proven. There's been many papers. It's not out there, and the reason why it's not out there is because it doesn't suit their agenda. Okay.
Well, on that note, folks, it's 10:57. So I have to leave. We could talk about.
I gotta
the sun.
come back.
You got to come back. This is WUSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook. Thanks a lot, Bob, for coming down.
Oh, thank you, John. Thank you for all serving. All serving.